Hey, and welcome to the Ladies in Biz podcast, where every week we have guests that are amazing female entrepreneurs. Find out how they got started and grew their business. Discover how their story can help you grow your business. Thanks for tuning in today. Here is your host, Penny Redmond.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ladies in Biz. And I'm so excited today. We've got another great guest today. And we're going to learn lots about our financial situations and what we're supposed to be doing and not doing. Particularly if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to want to really hear what our guest, Tracey Bissett, has today. So, Tracey, how are you doing? Welcome.
Thank you. Really happy to be here. Thanks, Penny.
I know on this cold day in Toronto, today it is frightfully cold. Thank goodness we don't have to go out of our offices, right, to do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to just read over your bio so everybody that's listening today will have an understanding that you come with a background and that you can tell us everything that you do, so we'll be able to run our businesses a little bit more effectively. So anyway, you are the president and chief financial fitness trainer. That's the name of your company. And you work with clients and individuals and business owners alike to help them understand and improve their level of financial fitness with a goal of increased confidence using their financial skills so they can be successful in their financial lives. Mm-hmm. In addition, I don't know how you do all of this, but you teach at a post-secondary institution. You also are lead speaking, you have lead speaking engagements, and you're the executive producer and host of the Young Money podcast, all focused on increasing financial fitness awareness. So you're a podcaster like me.
Absolutely, yes.
I know, yeah. So you must love podcasting.
I do, and it wasn't something I'd originally planned to do, but I was working with a coach and she suggested it, and I had never actually finished any blogs, so I thought, well, I'll give podcasting a try, and it's I've really taken to it. I really enjoy it.
Well, what I love about podcasting is that it has such a bigger reach. Like when we're speakers or at events, it's got a limited reach. So, and I also find that with podcasting, what we're talking about today for entrepreneurs, it is experiences that are global. It's not just because we're Canadians or live in Toronto. What we talk about is stuff that can help anyone in any country, any female entrepreneur.
Absolutely, and I find it really interesting when you go to look at the stats and the downloads. Between the UK and France, I've got more listeners than I have in Canada, which is pretty amazing.
Well, there's proof. I love hearing those stats. That's wonderful. Anyway, So one of the first questions that I always ask, because part of Ladies in Biz is we really want to hear other entrepreneurs and their stories and how you got started into this and what made you decide to get into it. So if you can give us a little bit of your story, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So when I was a young child, I was very entrepreneurial. I was out there doing things with my friends, trying to raise money because I always wanted to go to the store. I grew up in Nova Scotia, and the corner store was Green Gables. So I wanted to get a slushie or some chips or whatever. So I made up lessons for kids. I did babysitting. I started my own kind of home care business where when people were away, I would look after their homes, get my brother to mow their lawns, look after their pets, all that kind of thing. And I went to junior achievement as well in their company program, and I really got interested in business. So I went through school. I have a Bachelor of Commerce and a Master's in business, and I ended up in a big bank where I stayed for close to 20 years. So I started my entrepreneurial journey really fulsomely a couple years ago, and the bank was doing some reorganization, and so it was time for me to find a new path. And instead of going back to kind of a job like that, I thought, I might want to revisit what I really enjoyed in my youth and see what I can do with that. So my mission is really to empower people, whether they're individuals or business owners out there, to take control of their financial knowledge, build up their confidence so they can lead whatever life they want to and be really confident that they can manage their finances.
Wow, so you had a good start in the bank, which is kind of a nice foundation. I too was one of those professionals that really I like being the entrepreneurs. I still do. I never became an entrepreneur just because I thought I should be an entrepreneur. It kind of was one of those things that you just kind of fall into. But I think it's really good when you have that base with a bigger company at the very beginning, because then you kind of know where to go after.
Well, for me in particular, I was working in the commercial banking groups, risk management groups. So I dealt directly with business owners, helped them structure their loans, analyze their companies. And then for many years, I was in risk management, approving loans for companies, all industries, all across Canada. So I got a lot of experience really quickly, which really helped put me in good stead when I'm going out there and doing things on my own, because I'm really focused all the time on, is what I'm doing making money so that I can keep doing it? Because if you don't have sales and you're not being profitable, it doesn't matter what your dream is, you won't be successful at it.
Yeah, I was just listening to a audiobook before we started, and it was about a guy that said that he started his business and he thought that they had everything in place. They had the right people, they had enough money, and yet it didn't work, right? Yep. So it's almost like, okay, when do you throw in the towel? Or where do you say, or can you go and look at your plan again? And have you ever had a client or looked at where people weren't making money and you had to relook at their business?
Absolutely. So I do, I work with young people, so individuals. I work with adults as individuals, but I also work with kind of every age group as business owners. And oftentimes people don't have business plans when they start. So that's probably a surprise, that people aren't always starting with a plan. So then they haven't figured out how much might it cost me and how long might it actually take for me to get traction in the market, because things always cost more and it takes way longer than you think it's going to, even if you've got the best idea in the world.
I absolutely, well, I know I've started a few businesses and it always takes longer. I think that 6 months starting a business is nothing. It's just like, it goes like that because you have so much that you've got to do. And it's just like, wow, how long does it take to do everything?
The other thing that's really important is that people need to be adaptable. They can have a long-term vision of where their values and the value they want to bring to the world. But if your original idea isn't working and people aren't picking it up and they don't want to buy it, it's not meeting anybody's needs, you need to be adaptable to change the plan. So you can still carry on with the long-term vision, but maybe you're doing it in a little bit different way.
I actually think companies go through stages where, you think you're going to be somewhere and then it takes you in a different direction. And then you've got to adapt in order to be able to survive. I had one company where literally one day I was called into a supplier. It was a main supplier. And they said, by the way, we're not going to make that anymore. I'm going, well, that's 80% of my income is that particular item. So you go, okay, well, either you could go and cry in your bathroom and say, oh my God, what am I, this is over, or you can pick yourself up and say, okay, well, that's not going to work anymore. So what else can I do, right?
Absolutely. It's really critical to always be thinking and listening to your customers and what do they want and what do they need and how can you help them, and how you help them may change over time, the way that you deliver whatever it is or any kind of products. And especially if you're in a product-based business, you need a lot of money if you have inventory. And so those costs really add up very fast. If you're in a service-based business, you can keep the cost down at the beginning, but product-based business, you've got to have the capital to be able to deliver on the product.
Well, in the one business that I had, the business model was structured so that I would never have any inventory.
That's good.
It was perfect, actually. And it was lovely to run. But the problem was that sometimes then I started having suppliers that couldn't supply us in the right format that I needed, which then meant I had to bring on inventory. And as soon as you do that, it is a completely different business model.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, and then your plan, the plan that you had before is totally different.
Yeah.
Because what the margin that you were happy with making with something when you didn't hold inventory is never going to help you when you then start carrying the inventory, because you have to think of all the costs, the added costs of holding it, and your cash flow, and if you have to go and go and borrow money, right? What's going to happen to that? It's just like so complicated after that.
And just getting back to the kind of the question you prompted me on, I certainly have had lots of hard conversations with business owners about whether they need to make some hard choices, whether the business should continue, maybe stop investing your personal savings. It's not turning around. You need to make some different choices. And sometimes people are really reticent to give up their dream because they get fixated on exactly how the dream needs to look. And so my suggestion would be to be adaptable. Listen to your customers and give value that they are looking for.
So speaking of the business plan, which is, it is surprising how many people do start businesses without a business plan, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think it's just because a lot of times they can be idea people, but they don't have the capacity to or want to work on the numbers.
Well, most entrepreneurs get into business because they're so passionate and they're so good at whatever they do. So they have the belief that if I make it or I sell this service, people are going to come, and they don't necessarily know what they don't know. So it may not be that they think it's not that they don't think it's important, but they may not even know what should they know about the finance part.
Yeah, that's so scary. And I actually, it's because it's not as exciting for them, right? And I think it's pretty scary to do that because I know that I've done a lot of business plans, and I think every year I do a business plan. And in fact, I was just working on something not too long ago where it's, how we were talking about if you're passionate or not about it. And one of the things I said at the very beginning, whenever you do a plan, is the first question is, do you love what you're still doing?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not in love with it, especially if it's not you may hit some rough patches, it may not be going well. And that will really be the trigger or the big strain on the business, because now you're doing something you're not passionate about and it's not working financially. And it will have a big toll on your whole life, your health, your relationships with people. It's not just the money aspect alone, it's the impact all of it has on the rest of your life.
Oh, for sure. One of the things I liked about it was that, and I've done this for years, so it was also something I learned from working in big corporations as well, but you kind of modify it to small business. But having a piece of paper and just splitting it right down in half and saying, hey, what is working, what isn't working, what do I like doing, and what do I not like doing? And I think if the things that you don't like doing, normally I bet you it's normally the money side. So I think that people have to go and get help right away when it comes to, I love having someone come every month and look at my numbers with me.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it is not that people don't like doing it. I think they don't necessarily understand what it entails. Sometimes, depending on your upbringing, I mean, children as young as 3 and 4 have very defined views about money. So if your childhood was not positive around money, you've probably got some mental block around it, or you just think it's not good. And you may feel that you're not smart enough to figure it out when, in fact, things are not as scary when you get some help and you start digging into it. And you're going to feel a lot more empowered when you actually make those small steps to learn your numbers and know what they mean and use them to actually help you guide your business.
So say we're a brand new entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Obviously, you're going to tell us about the financials, but could you give it a little bit more of a deeper dive on what you think an entrepreneur should do before they start a business?
Absolutely. I mean, the reason they're probably starting their business is because they've got a great idea for a product or a service that they believe. To me, the very first step is to do some testing of it. Make sure that the people out there want it. So even before you've got a big business plan, do a little bit of a test. See if it's something that people are interested in.
So testing could be like going for friends and families, asking them.
Could be, or you might want to go a little bit more detached to who you think your target consumer is going to be. Maybe you do a focus group Maybe you go out and do some surveys, a little bit of market research. And there's ways to do that really cheaply, because you can even make use of some post-secondary institutions in their marketing research classes. You could get one of them to do a project on it for you. Like if you're really,
I like it.
Like if you're trying to conserve funds and maybe you're working and trying to decide if you should do this, there's lots of resources out there and ways to do it without spending a lot of money. But first, figure out if the idea is good. So if you think you've got a good idea and people seem to resonate with it, then I would really get into the business plan. And you're going to go really deep on who are your customers? What's the mission of your company? Who are you going to serve? What's the cost structure look like? How are you going to grow? All of those kinds of elements. And certainly a great resource that's out there for all entrepreneurs is Business Development Bank of Canada. They've got great resources on their website. They've got sample business plans. They've got all the kinds of questions you need to be asking yourself. And then if that you want a little bit of assistance, maybe you find a coach or a financial professional to help you put that together.
So what was the resource again? Because I'm going to put it in the links for everybody.
Sure. So the Business Development Bank of Canada, BDC, which is the Bank of Entrepreneurs for Canada. And they've got great
I'll put that link in then at the bottom for everyone as well then.
So they've got business plan templates. They've actually got financial templates so that you can run your numbers. But when you're starting out, you need to figure out how much money is it going to cost to get this thing started. Because as you mentioned, there's so many costs. I mean, even from just website, if it's an actual product and you've got to do some tests on it, you got to get the packaging, all the marketing. There's a lot of costs that go into it before you even open up your doors. And then how much ongoing is it going to cost? Because you're probably not going to make money instantaneously unless you found the one unique thing that everybody's been searching for. So it's probably going to take you another 6, 12, maybe 18 months before you're running a profit. And do you know how much it's going to cost you to get there? And do you have the money to do it?
I was at a meeting just the other night. There was 2 young people that were working. They're probably about 25 to 30 years old. And it was a meetup where we were talking about marketing. And one of the things that was so funny, we had a coach that was there as well, and I'm the marketing person. And both of us said to them, don't quit your day job. You know, do that testing, just like you said, go and do all of that. I think having a financial coach and a coach that's helping you with your business when you start, I got to tell you, I didn't do that, but man, I look back and I'm thinking I could have done so much better if I had that outside help. And sometimes you're so close to it and so passionate about your idea that it's so good if you have other people that are looking inside out and can be more objective.
Well, even more so, I would say, like, everybody is smart and everybody's capable and you can figure out everything on your own, but do you need to? I think is the question you want to ask yourself. How quickly do you want your business to get going? And if somebody can teach you how to do some things with just the step-by-step way without you doing the research and figuring it out, there's no shame in that. And there's no shame in getting the support that you need because you're doing something different that you may not have any training for. So for me, I do lots of training and I get lots of training on marketing because that's not my natural forte. It's not what I studied in. I took some courses in my undergrad and my master's in it, but marketing was not my primary job at the bank. So areas where you're not as strong, you don't need to figure it all out on your own. Get some help in that area of expertise.
Yeah, in fact, the other day I just had a gentleman that he's got a great idea and he's ready to go. He's had successful businesses in the past, but you know, even 2 years back, how you would market 2 years before, you know, is different than how you would do it even today. I think it's pretty amazing because, you know, marketing, I did marketing years ago and I got to tell you, it was pretty basic. You had certain ways that you would go to the market. But now there's so many different ways of doing it, and plus cheaper ways of doing it as well if you've got certain skills.
And I think if you cover a lot of customers, like age groups, there's more definition and defined traits of the various age groups than there would have been historically. Oh. And so you need to be very clear and do very targeted marketing to the groups that you want to serve.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing you were talking about as well as knowing your customer, I think, you know, that goes without saying, but it takes on a new meaning now because of all the different ways that you can market, because you really do have to know the psychographics and everything of that customer as well.
And so you say it goes without saying, but I have to say that the more I am in business, the more I learn that common sense is not very common anymore.
Oh.
And so a lot of people, they're so caught up in their dream and what they want their business to be, they actually don't think about the customer that much. And so
that's a starting point.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, it is a starting point, because I think that if you don't know your customer, then you don't know their pain points. You don't know if you're satisfying a need or not.
Yeah.
So you have to step back. And that's one of the first things that I always look at too, is definitely you have a product, great, you've got a great idea, but does anyone want it?
That's right.
Have you ever come across where someone's had a product that maybe people didn't really want, or they were surprised by that?
Well, I've been working with a friend of mine actually, and she has a business she wants to start. And so we've been at it for a couple months, and certainly I was encouraging her to do the research and find out, do people want this? And so also to having kind of that honest conversation about how much money are you willing to put behind this? And is it going to be enough? And so we've gotten to the point where the amount that she wants to contribute is not going to be enough. So should she proceed with some steps or not, or just kind of choose another direction? Because especially if you are in an inventory intensive business, it takes a lot of money. So do you want to risk it? And are you confident enough in yourself and your product or service to make a go of it? Because you as the entrepreneur have to have the most confidence of anybody who's going to be related to or working with your business.
And the other thing is, I guess, and we'll get into this now, is if you want it to be funded, if you have a product in that you have to go and get it funded. So if you want to go to the bank, or do you want to go to an angel investor? So let's talk about first, if you wanted to go to the bank for money, what is required for that?
Well, I mean, it is quite challenging as a startup to get financing from a traditional bank. The ways that a bank would decide to lend you money would be based on your personal credit score. So the way you've interacted with money, your personal life, that's what they're really basing it on, and any collateral that you have in your personal assets that can really support it. And so over time, you'll build up your track record in your business, and then potentially the analysis shifts over to the company, and then you can have access to greater financing. But at the beginning, it's really about you. The bank will be really interested. So in your credit score, your personal net worth, so how much assets do you have, what liabilities do you have out there. They'll also be very interested in the business plan that we were talking about, because they want to see that you've actually thought everything through, and included in that would be financial projection for your income statement, so all your revenue and your expenses, what your balance sheet will look like in the future, so your assets, liabilities, and your equity. And then really important, they'll be looking for a cash flow forecast to see every month how much money are you going to burn through, and at what point do you think it's going to be positive. If you may have discovered something, maybe it's a service or a product that you have, and you may have already secured some contracts to deliver that to customers. If you have those, that's fantastic, and a bank would be really interested in seeing that. That would make the difference kind of at that initial outset, totally relying on your personal history versus now starting to look at the company. Because if you've got contracts in place for orders that are going to come through, that's a huge sign of credibility.
Yeah, big difference. But what are the chances of that for a lot of businesses? Because in order to have contracts, normally you've already been in business for a while. So this may sound negative. I don't want it to feel negative, but I think we have to deal with reality, is that most likely if you're starting a business and you haven't had any past where you've had businesses and you were successful before, you probably can't count on a bank to give you money.
Not to your company. They'll lend it to your company, but secured by personal assets. So maybe it's taking out a line of credit on your house, another mortgage on your house, and using those funds to do it. At the beginning, you're probably relying on friends or family to help you with the funds to start up, or yourself. You may potentially find a private investor, but even larger investors, unless it's an idea that they think really has a lot of potential to grow quickly, I think it would be challenging to find an investor right at startup.
It is, and I've done that where I've started a business and we needed an angel investor in order to get money to start the business. And I think some people think as well, and I think we should clear this up, I know you can, is that some people think you can go to investors and that's, you can do the financial plan and you can be able to, explain to them how good your business is and what the plan is and the projections. But what most people don't understand is that they expect you to put a lot of money in there, because very rarely would an angel investor ever give you any money unless you've already put a lot of money into the business yourself.
Yeah, I used to have this conversation with my clients all the time at the bank, because they wouldn't want to put their personal guarantee on the loan, or they wouldn't want to put money in. And so then it becomes a conversation about, why should a third party feel more confident and support your business more than you are doing? Because nobody is a charity out there who gives the money. You may be eligible to get some grants or some interest-free loans or potentially some forgivable loans, but the majority of financing out there is from an institution that expects to get repaid. They have shareholders. And so this isn't a charitable offering. You should be as committed and certainly more committed than any other source of funds out there.
Absolutely. And the chances are that when you do that, you're not going to be able to take an income either. Mm-hmm. So not only are you going to put your money up front as well, but you're not going to be able to draw from it. So it's going to take you a couple of years, and depending on what your plan is and showing that you're having income, right? But you're not going to be able to draw anything if you don't think that you're going to be able to provide and pay back that loan.
And if you have some plans for growth and scaling in your business, you need to keep reinvesting those profits, not taking it out for yourself, to be able to hit those milestones that you may have established for yourself.
Yeah, and I don't want to discourage our listeners, because it does sound a little scary, but I think it's in fairness, is that if they are aware of all of these, and then they can plan accordingly. So maybe it means that you spend another year in your job and doing savings, so that when you do start, number one, you can own your own business. You might not have to rely on anyone. And if you can get enough money from friends and family, then that's going to put you in a better position as well. And also, I know that angel investors want to see that friends and family have invested in your business as well, because that tells them a lot.
Yeah, and just on a cautionary note, when people are going and they're asking their friends and family for money, if it's an unproven concept and you're really not sure how it's going to go, you want to be really clear about the risks. So number one, I don't know when I'm going to be able to pay you back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay you back. And so you wouldn't want to be taking money from someone you know needs it back in 3 months' time to maybe fund their child's education. And so you want to be, just have those honest conversations, because you don't want there to be any strain with friends and family. That would be on top of all the other strain that would be in your business. So having those honest conversations, and if they don't have the funds, there shouldn't be any pressure for them to invest those.
Yeah, and you want to be able to go and have Easter and Christmas and Sunday night dinners with your family without feeling that you're feeling horrible about it, right? So, but if it is clear, just like you said, then the expectation isn't there. And so you continue to be invited back home for dinner.
Yeah, a lot of people right now are doing, as you suggest, kind of a side hustle. They're either working still full-time or doing kind of 3/4 time, part-time, and really getting the viability of the business proven, getting it off the ground, starting small, so they still have the financial cushion to cover their day-to-day living expenses and feed the business. And then when it's the right time, they can make it the permanent thing. And I think that's a great way to do it if you're not sure if it's for you. Some people just don't have the risk tolerance to be an entrepreneur, because you are taking a risk when you start your own business, and you've got to rely on yourself and your ability to go out there and make connections to sell things. And so some people aren't sure if they can do it. So it's good to do it in a kind of a safe trial way.
And interesting you said about the risk, because when I was doing this one company that it was a couple of million that we needed. And we ended up having a wonderful person that wanted to come in to provide us the money that we needed. But the only concern I had at the end, we ended up not doing it, because I was fearful that the angel investor thought that the business was going to be amazing, because we were so passionate about it. It was easy to sell them on what the company was going to be. But then I was worried that he didn't understand the work that it takes in order to do it. Even though we had a great financial plan and we showed we weren't going to make money for a few years because it was an e-commerce site.
Mm-hmm.
And it was back in the days when you had to really create an e-commerce site from scratch yourself.
Okay.
So you not only had to have product and everything like that, but you also had to have a whole team of people that understood the technology and to be able to create the software. So I actually pulled out of it because I was very, very worried that they would not understand what was required. So it's not even that you get the money, it's that you can work with that angel investor and that they're going to be happy with you, right?
It's absolutely got to be the right fit. You've got to be aligned on how decision making is going to happen, when repayment's going to happen, just being factual, as you say, about the amount of work that's going to have to go into it. And just getting back to the family friends piece, as an entrepreneur, you're going to need a lot of support from them, just kind of emotionally, because it's hard to be an entrepreneur. It's very rewarding. And certainly people who run their own businesses, I don't think they'd have it any other way, but it's all on you. And so you need support of your friends and family. And so you wouldn't want anybody isolated.
Oh, absolutely. And, there's in every business, I haven't seen any of all the people I've talked to that are entrepreneurs. I've never heard anyone say that, there was no problem ever. It just doesn't happen. It's business.
What tends to happen, though, I find over time, is things that might have been big problems when you were starting are now like not such a big problem.
Oh,
you have new big problems. And so you've figured out how to handle a lot of stuff, and you just keep raising the bar on what becomes the big problem.
They say not to sweat the small stuff. Yeah. But you know what? When you first start your business, everything seems like a big problem.
Yeah.
And you get so tired. Sometimes you can get tired, and you just really, as soon as you get tired, then all problems seem a lot bigger than they are.
Yeah, if I could give some advice for people thinking about starting their business, or even entrepreneurs out there, make sure you surround yourself with people who are doing the same thing as you, and people who are kind of at different stages. So people who might be a little bit behind you, people at the same level, and people who are ahead of you. And I found when I started my business, I didn't have the network I needed. I had great friends, great family, very supportive, but not a lot of business owners in my network. And so I had to make a really concerted effort to go out there and find people who could support me in what I was doing now, to either just be the person who says, yeah, I've been through that. It'll be fine tomorrow. Don't worry. Or here's how I did it. You could do like this. And just to really have that network of people who get you. So it's really important.
I'm actually going through a process right now, and you think, wow, you've been in business for 14 years. You should have this nailed, right? But the fact is, my business has changed and it's evolving, and all businesses evolve. And I actually didn't have a group of people that I could go to and talk to. So I'm searching for the right group. I've joined 2 groups. Well, I've been a member of one for many years, but then I just joined another group about 6 months ago. And I've been going to different associations and trying them out to see if they're the right ones for me. So I really recommend that you research it and attend the meetings and see if it's right for you, and their format is what you need as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to try it out and find the fits. And then if you don't find the right one, try another one. Ask people that you admire. If you see other women business owners out there who seem to be making it look so easy, ask them what's their secret. Ask them, who do they talk to? What's their support system? There's no one size fits all, as you mentioned. There's groups out there for everybody and different support systems for everybody.
Well, I think I'm going to end up doing 2 groups, because I think that I have different needs, and there isn't one group that satisfies all my needs. So, but you know what fun to be able to go and meet and to network with like-minded people. It's inspiring.
Yeah. And even if it's just hearing someone go through the same thing as you, okay, I'm on the right track. This is actually the way you go through it. And you get the inspiration, you get the support, you've got a shoulder to cry on if you need it, and certainly people to show you the way if you need it. And then you're also able to give back to that group as well. with the things that you've learned. And everyone doesn't need to learn things on their own. They can learn from other people's learnings without making the same potential missteps.
I also think right now there's such a trend with the side hustles and mompreneurs and having the side hustles. It's so important for them to connect with other women that are doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
You can get lonely, right? As a solopreneur.
Yeah. I mean, if you are, like in my business right now, it's predominantly me. I have a virtual assistant that assists me, but I mean, if I'm not out there meeting with clients, I mean, it can be lonely on your own those days that you're toiling away on stuff. And so it's great to have a good support system. I'm part of a mastermind group. So there's about 15 women in the group. We work together all year. We have regular calls and meetings and in-person get-togethers, but it's just having that support system and people I can go to and that I know can help me when I need it.
The other thing that I think is another solution or choice that you can make is get an accountability partner.
I have one of those as well.
Yeah, I think that's actually, for me, that's really good. It's, we all work differently and our needs are different. But when I first started as a consultant, I had someone that I met, or we spoke on the phone, and he was starting his career out as a consultant at the same time. And we met, or we talked every Monday morning, and where we had to go over our list of what our to-dos were, and also what we didn't achieve or did achieve the week before. But, everyone is so different, but I love it. Is that what you like doing as well?
Yeah, we actually meet on Mondays as well. And we're bi-weekly. And it was someone who used to be my coach, and then my business grew, so we became more at the same level. And we're in different industries, so we have complementary things that we bring to the table. And so my ideas are different than hers generally, and hers vice versa. And so really helpful. And it's just humbling when you have to say, okay, I was going to do all these things last week and I haven't moved one of them, and maybe what's causing that. And if you need some support to get through maybe an obstacle or just a little bit of inspiration to get you through whatever you need. But I find it's great to know you're in it with someone else.
And the other thing I think too that might work is just having a mentor. So have you ever, did you have a mentor when you were growing through all this?
I would say I have a few, and I have different people I tap for different things, but I've been really focused on making sure I have different people in my support group that I can reach out for different things. There's some people, if I just want to complain about whatever's going on, I've got that person who helps me with other things, but then I've got some other people that maybe I can't get as much of their time, and so I would just be kind of conserving my bigger questions to ask them. But I find that throughout my network, I've got all the people I need, but it really takes effort, and you need to be committed to keeping the relationships. It's not something you just kind of connect on LinkedIn and all of a sudden, okay, I'll just call them one day. It's a mutual thing where you're interested in their life and their business or their career, and it goes both ways. So, and it's not just about taking, it's about how can I help you and how can you help me? And some days it might just be about how can I help you? And so,
there's an article that I read, and I'm not sure if I agree with this or not, but anyway, we can discuss it. But one of the things that this person believed is that you don't pick the mentor picks you.
I don't know if I would agree with that. Sometimes it's the case. So I happen to see a lot of times with my students. So as you mentioned, I teach at Centennial College. I teach in a financial services program. For the most part, I teach graduate students. So they are students anywhere from like 24 to 60. Sometimes as ranges. They are predominantly international students coming to Canada to get a better life. They have 1 to 2 degrees already. And so I see sometimes some of my students that I really think if they could have a bit more of a chance, if I like the way they've interacted with me in class, they've had a really great results in the course. I think that like that, I may see them and may be able to help them a little bit with mentorship and perhaps sponsorship to help them get into a financial organization in Canada. But I think at other times, people are so busy that shouldn't be just some mentor's responsibility to be out there looking for who can I mentor. Sometimes it's just about, we've had a moment, we've connected, and the mentee who's looking for the mentor saying, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I'd love to continue it another day. Would that be okay? And so I think it's really incumbent on the mentee as well. Mentors are very busy, so they may not often notice that there's somebody kind of thinking, you know, I want you to be my mentor. And mentees have to have the confidence to say why, how they could do it, and not be too demanding of the time. So not every week for 2 hours do I want you to be my mentor.
Yeah, if they could just be respectful of people's time. But, you know, and I think most of us have been in business for a long time and have a lot of life lessons ourselves to help people through. We want to be able to, but we do have time limits on everything.
As you mentioned, like I go around and I do things in different parts of the city. So I do consulting with institutions, I work with individuals, I do my teaching. So I often have time in the car. So I don't often go to any coffee meetings with anyone anymore at all, because I just don't have time. But I'm happy to take a 15-minute, 30-minute phone call in the car, get to know you, whatever that may be. And so often I'll suggest that. And some people, I think they feel like, oh, well, I got a call. No, you got some time. And I made time. But I can't commit to 1 hour downtown to have the coffee to the another hour home, whatever it may be. So I think people should be thinking about access is great, and having just the time no matter how it comes.
Yeah, I agree. And being on the phone in the car is really great, because you do end up having maybe 15 minutes or 20 minutes where you can at least give them, well, you should be driving, of course, and paying attention, but you can talk to them at least and keep them moving forward, right? Because you certainly don't want someone going around in circles and worrying about something.
Yeah.
Where you can answer their question really quickly. So let's say we have a very successful company. And so what do you do after that? What do you do for maintenance when it comes to the finances?
Well, I think it depends on what your goals are. If it's your dream to run this business until you retire, maybe pass it down to another generation or sell it, I think you always want to continue to be adaptable. Make sure you're on the cutting edge of those trends and delivering what your customers want, keeping up that research. I think then you want to be very strategic about your financial resources. So perhaps you want to make some further investments, especially if you're doing something capital based, if you need to make investments to maybe your plant, your equipment, all of that kind of stuff. These days, it could actually be that you need the money for the technology side. And continue to make those investments. You don't just want to sit on a pile of cash and kind of let the business run down a little bit. You want to keep it current and keep making the investments you need to do to make it successful. You may decide to launch another business, maybe related, maybe not related. You may bring in other partners. And maybe it was your dream just to get it to that point. You may look for a buyout at that point. Maybe you love to be in the growing, creating stage, but you don't want to be the minder of the business.
Yeah, I was at that stage with one of my companies where it was, I'm one of those people that I love it when you get started and it's so new and fresh, and you've got to come up with really unique ideas. But when you get the business started and it's got a good foundation and it can run itself, then I don't get as excited anymore. So either you've got to bring someone in to be able to manage what you're doing so you can do something else that you really love, or you got to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. And generally the people who grow it and start it with the creative aspects, they're generally not the people who are minding it over the long haul. And so if you can start sub company, you can start a second company, have someone else do it, that's great. But maybe just too much effort if you can't find the right person, because you really need to trust that person. You don't want them to be running the wonderful business into the ground. And so selling it may be the best option.
There's a lady that I know, and she was telling us a story. She had a very big tech company, and she sold it, but stayed on to help the company that had purchased it. But they did such a poor job that within a very short time, the company had locked its employees out. And then I was actually bought the company back and then started it, and then eventually then sold it later on at a nice profit for her. And also she was able to sell it to a company that she knew would do better with it.
Yeah.
So, business is funny. You just never know which way it's going to go.
That's right. And certainly, even with family businesses, something to consider. You may, if you're the parents and you're running this business, it may be your dream for your children to take over, but you need to make sure it's their dream and that they want to do it, that they have the skills, it's their passion and their interest, because studies have shown as companies pass from generation to generation, the more generations that go on, the less successful the business is going to be.
And it's a proven fact too. It's not like we're saying, hey, it doesn't work. There's statistics to prove that it doesn't work. And so if you were talking about if you had a ton of cash and stuff like that, and you would reinvest in your business, but if you didn't do that, what would you do with it?
Oh, well, all kinds of things. You could get into some stuff and get some passive income. I mean, you could buy some properties, start having real estate holdings. Where you're basically got someone managing the properties, you can be earning income off that. You may take it out to start a second business. Who knows, you may have a dream of living half the year in another country. You may take the funds out to buy a home there or to travel. Like if you've got the business to a place where it can run well with the management you've got in place, why not do anything that you wanted to in your life?
Is that what we aspire to?
I don't think most business owners do, actually. The ones I talk to, they really just love their business and they love to work in it every day.
Mm-hmm.
But I certainly think as business owners keep starting younger and younger, there's no long-term promise of like a 30, 40-year career at an institution anymore, or organization. I think that people have different goals when they're creating their business. And so one of those goals is greater access to travel and running a business not from one place. And so I think as the years continue to go on, we'll see more people doing that. But the people I see in their 50s, 60s, 70s running businesses, they do it because they love it and they love to be there every day. They don't want to be on a beach somewhere or off on an excursion somewhere else.
It's so interesting. Well, I just came from the design show and I was reading last night, I was reading some information about travel. And it is certainly, I'm not even going to say it's a trend. I really think it's a direction that we're all going to, is that and especially younger people in business and entrepreneurs, one of their biggest desires is to be able to have that flexibility to move into a different country and still be able to work.
Yeah, more around the experience than the possessions. So yeah. I've had a lot of guests on my podcast who talk about individuals in their 20s, 30s. It's more about what can I do, what can I see, what can I enhance my life with, versus generations prior would have been more focused on the things that they have to kind of keep up with their colleagues or friends. And now it's more about what can I be doing with my money, enriching my life.
Yeah, without a doubt, that has really changed. And I've seen it, even what I did with my money when we first started out as a couple. And then with my daughters and what they're doing now, it is a totally different path. And I mean, they've traveled around the world and it really, you just have to say, where are you going next? And I'd be happy. I think I'm a little bit of a homebody now. I traveled a lot when I worked at Sears. I traveled the world and in other companies as well as my consulting company. I traveled the world. So I'm so happy just to be at home. But I look at it and I'm thinking, maybe I was happy with that life before because I did travel and it was work.
Could be. I mean, but things are a little bit different. So, I mean, when you were starting out, home ownership was probably very achievable. It was affordable. And within your lifetime, you expected to pay off your mortgage. You didn't expect to retire with a mortgage. Now, when you look at somebody in their 20s, like it's very hard, especially in Greater Toronto area, you're looking in Vancouver, to even think about home ownership. And then you're going to have that debt for your whole life, probably. And so what does that look and feel like? And is that the life I want? People start thinking about those kinds of things.
Yeah. Do you think it's similar to Europeans or people that have lived in major European cities that, like in London, where it's been like that for a long time?
Yeah, I would say that things are changing, and depending where you live in Canada, I mean, you can certainly be in a smaller community and home ownership can be very accessible and very affordable. And then if you are an entrepreneur who can run your business from anywhere, maybe you're living somewhere like that, and then you're using your money to go travel. So there's no one way, as I consistently talk about on my show. There's no one path to success, and people can choose whatever it is that's going to make them happy.
So the trend you really think is more entrepreneurs or younger people becoming entrepreneurs earlier in their life than what we did, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I felt as though I wouldn't become an entrepreneur. I think even 5 years I would have said, don't become an entrepreneur until you really got, maybe worked for bigger companies, maybe had more experience in different things. And I don't think I would say that today.
No, I think that there's so much access to information. If you want to learn something, you can find someone to teach you. And I think that depending on the nature of the business, they're all not so capital or money intensive, that you can take a little bit of a risk and try something out. And if it doesn't work, you go on to the next thing. I had one guest on the podcast. He's already had 15 businesses.
Oh.
So he sold 3 for lots of money. He had many that didn't succeed. But he's only 25. So he started when he was in high school. He went to college part-time, kind of 3/4 time, and he was doing this on the side. So he's been amassing his business skills and business management skills while learning formally, and just giving it a shot. And I think something that can be harder, like I know that for me, deciding not to do something takes a little bit more time for me to do that. But I think if you're in the mindset of saying, let me try it and I'm going to fail really fast. If it doesn't work, I'm canceling it. I'm going to move to the next thing. I think that's one of the keys of success. Well,
I guess it's a little different where we used to be. Our mindset was that we would be in a big company and we would work very hard. And, to get to climb up that corporate ladder, we would work at many hours and try to be successful that way. But I really love the way of looking at it now, where people are, when they're younger, they're not as fearful as we would have been.
Yeah, and I think that they have more role models out there. I mean, certainly they can see peers, and that's one of the points of my podcast, is to just show what people are doing, lessons that they've learned, different ways people are going about it, and that there's no one way. So give it a shot, whatever you're passionate about. If you want to work for a company, go and do it. If you want to start your own thing, give it a try, because you're young and you can afford to take those kind of calculated risks at that point in time.
I think also is when in the podcast that we're talking about, are lots of very women that have done very well in business, but it's interesting when we talk about their stories. Mm-hmm. You and I started out with bigger companies and we kind of grew up with those companies, but I am shocked by how many women knew that when they were born. Well, you knew you were an entrepreneur, even though you went and you were an entrepreneur for years. But I'm shocked by how many women said they would just never, ever work for a company. Part of it was because they came from a family that were, their parents were entrepreneurs, or their father, unfortunately, because it was years ago, their father was an entrepreneur. And they just said, I'm never working for a company ever.
Yeah. It really depends on your upbringing, what you've been able to observe. And so in this day and age, it's so great. There's examples of everything out there, so you can be inspired by whoever really resonates with you. I think it's fantastic.
And I think you were absolutely right about there's so many resources now out there where you can help. There's lots of e-courses. If you were thinking of being an entrepreneur, you can go in and find an e-course that'll at least help you a little bit understand the business, or in podcasts like what we do. It gives you an understanding of what you might face when you're becoming an entrepreneur. So it's of great value.
Absolutely.
So I think we're probably running out of time now. So one of the last questions, second last question, is that I really like it. If you could give us a message to an entrepreneur, what would you like to be able to say to them?
A couple of key things. So number one, know your numbers. All the time, you need to know where you are, you need to know what they are, so that you can run your business with confidence and not from a place of fear. Secondly, support yourself with people who can support you, who have different knowledge bases and skill sets than you do to really support you, and that you have somebody you can go to for whatever you may need. And number three, when you decide that you're going to have your own business, go at it 100%. So get yourself out there, market yourself, If you feel like people are tired of hearing from you, it's probably not the case. You're just probably feeling nervous that you've put yourself out there too much, but it's really hard to do so. And it takes time to build up your brand and your reputation. So be consistent with that messaging. So those would be my 3 pieces of advice. And have fun. It is really fun. It's lots of hard work, but you get to control what you're doing and figure out how to do it. So have a good time with it.
Yeah, getting rid of that fear is a big part of it. And having fun, should have fun.
Yes.
Don't do it if you're not going to have fun.
And everybody's definition of fun is different. So I happen to think numbers are fun. Sometimes when I work with my clients, they actually start thinking numbers are fun once they've got over the fear of them. But maybe it's the marketing part. Maybe it's the working with clients, and it just gets you so excited. So whatever it is, find your fun.
So at the very end, I like, because people are listening to this, they probably may want to connect with you again. So if you can just share with us where people can connect with you.
Absolutely. So you can go to my website, bissettfinancialfitness.com. So if you're certainly a young person or someone who supports young people, check out the podcast, Young Money for Young Millionaires in the Making. And I do work with young people. I'll have a workbook coming out in the next couple of months. It's a 12-month money planner to help support people in their finances. Also this year, I'm going to be launching a course for business owners to help them get comfortable with their financials. So website's the best place to find me. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bissett FinFit.
That is so important. I love your podcast, by the way. And so for anyone that's listening, your niche is definitely young entrepreneurs and really getting them started and to understand the financial part of it. Would that be fair to say?
I would say that's for the podcast, absolutely. But I do find that it's 18 to 30-ish and people who love them, because I have a lot of parents and grandparents who listen, who get a lot of value out of it. But I work with business owners of all ages and stages. So
I actually love your podcast because, again, I'm a mother. And it's interesting because if I hear some tidbits that I think can definitely help my daughters and in our conversations, why not, right?
Thanks for listening to the Ladies in Biz. Send us your comments on ladiesinbiz.com. We would like to hear from you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on, Tracey. I really appreciate you going over this because I do think that a lot of people are fearful of the financial part of their business. And you've given us all kinds of tips on being able to get past that fear level and where to find help. So it really will make a difference for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. If I can leave one final piece of advice, it would be to just ask questions and don't feel silly about doing it. There's no bad question to ask, and business owners should just keep asking till they get the answers that make sense to them.
Yeah, thank you. That is so true. Okay, take care. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.